Reading and listening is the best way to become fluent fast, and that's what you'll do in this lesson. We'll read an article discussing how being alone can make you happier. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Our headline, Humans Need Solitude. How being alone can make you happier. So this woman is alone. She is not with other people. She is by herself. So that is alone. It's an adjective. And notice you use the verb be. She is alone. I was alone last night. Now here, solitude, this is the state of being alone. But solitude is a noun. So just how you would speak about it, because it's a noun, would be different. She might say, I went hiking to get some solitude, or to be alone. So just the sentence structure is different because alone is an adjective and solitude is a noun. Don't worry about taking these notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's keep reading together. In Wim Wenders's recent film, Perfect Days, so this is the name of the film, the movie, and this is the director or creator of the movie. The main character, a Tokyo toilet cleaner, spends many of his hours in solitude. So here, remember, because solitude is a noun, we need additional grammar. So you can spend time in solitude, in solitude. Now, if you wanted to use simply alone, what could you say? Spends many of his hours alone. Because you can spend time alone directly because alone is an adjective. In solitude, to be honest, it sounds more poetic. It sounds more literary. Alone is a more everyday word choice that you would use. So most likely you wouldn't say, I spent the night in solitude. That sounds quite poetic, unexpected for everyday speech, although it could be an interesting conversation starter, but you would say, I spent the night alone. I watched a movie alone. I went to the restaurant alone. I went to the mall alone. Now, to use in solitude, I might use it in a very specific way. For example, I booked a 5-day yoga retreat to get some solitude. Or I'm going to spend the weekend hiking in solitude. So I would use it in times, very specific times in my life when I crave that state of being by myself without others, where alone is just a much more everyday situation. He spends many of his hours in solitude alone. Now, notice here we have your verb in ing because this describes the action that he's doing. So I spend my time watering plants. If you didn't have this in solitude or alone, when you would continue here, you spend time in this case representing many of his hours. You could say 3 hours, the weekend, my morning, and then your gerund verb, the action. So spends many of his hours in solitude, watering plants, contemplating, listening to music, and reading. Now, contemplating, you may know, is an alternative word for thinking, but we use contemplate more broadly to just think about general things, life, your life, basically, your goals, your life now, your life in the future. So contemplating, it sounds more broad, whereas you think about something specific. Let's think about what we want for dinner. I wouldn't say let's contemplate
what we want for dinner, but let's contemplate how we see our future in 5 years. Yes, you could use think about, but contemplate really sounds more advanced and it sounds more of a longer term mental process.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
While more characters are introduced as the film develops, for many viewers, its earlier moments really struck a chord. So the earlier moments in the film, remember that's when the man was spending time in solitude or spending time alone. And then it lists the activities he was doing. So those moments really struck a chord. This is an idiom, to strike a chord. Struck is the past simple. So it struck a chord. When I watched it yesterday, those scenes, those moments struck a chord and then really intensifies it. Now, to strike a chord, this is when you relate to something, so you approve of it. So I can relate to this man spending time alone in solitude and seeing him happy, because when I spend time alone in solitude, I'm also happy. So because I can relate to it, I approve of that behavior and say, yes, I agree, I approve. This is commonly used when you're getting agreement on changes or proposals or policies. You might say that the new policy struck a chord, that would be the past simple, struck a chord with urban voters. So maybe the new policy was to build more condos, something that I approve of because I live in an urban environment. So that policy for me struck a chord. Or maybe something like building more green spaces in urban areas. I think that's a better example. That struck a chord because even though I live in an urban area, I still want greenery and beauty. So that struck a chord. I agree with it. I approve of it because I relate to it. I want it. Let's keep reading. No wonder. So this would be a reply to something. So if I say, oh, I really want more parks downtown, my friend could say, no wonder. It's like saying, of course you do. Obviously, I understand that. So it's saying, I understand, or I see why you're saying that. So in this case, they're saying, no wonder the movie struck a chord. No wonder people approved of the movie. Thoughtful and positive outlooks on solitude. Remember, solitude is a noun, on something, on solitude, have been taking up more and more space on our screens. So if they take up space on our screens, bookshelves, and smartphones, it just means that there's more of them there. So if this style of book takes up space on my bookshelf, it's because I have many of those books on that topic. So it's just saying there's more content, from podcasts to viral TikToks. So more people are creating content on this topic, and it's thoughtful and positive outlooks on solitude, on the state of being alone. Seemingly, there's never been a better time to be alone. You could also say there's never been a better time to be in solitude But remember I said the everyday term is alone. Now, seemingly, this is used to say based on what appears to be true. Because everything we've read until now supports the positives of being alone, being in solitude. So based on what appears to be true, there's never been a better time. Everyone is posting content about it, talking positively about it. There's movies about it. So based on what appears to be true. So, but it leaves some doubt. When you use the word seemingly, even though you're not saying it, you're implying that although it appears to be true, I'm not 100% certain. So it's a very important word. It conveys a lot of meaning. If this is the first video you've ever watched from me, you might say, seemingly, Jennifer's a great teacher. And I'm not offended by that at all because this is the first video you've watched. It appears to be true, but can you say that as a fact when you've only watched one video for 10 minutes? Maybe not. But hopefully 10 videos later, you drop the seemingly, you remove it, and you simply say, Jennifer's a great teacher. So this may not be true. This is presented as fact. Let's keep reading. Packed with keen observations and helpful tips. So packed means there's a large number of. You could also use filled with. So as an adjective, you would use this in everyday context saying the mall was packed. The movie theater was packed, was filled with people. If you use filled with, you would have to specify the something filled with people. But you could just say the mall was packed. Packed is an adjective, so you can just end it there. The mall was packed. So packed with keen observations and helpful tips, this new wave of information aims not only to destigmatize solitude, but also to make a case for its benefits and pleasure. Okay, first, let's talk about this new wave of information. New wave of information simply means information. In this case, they mentioned films, TV shows, books, podcasts, TikToks, that's the information. And the new wave of information suggests there's a large volume of information on a topic that hasn't been discussed before or recently. And this information, it's packed with keen observations and helpful tips. Now, to destigmatize solitude, let's just look at the root word, which is stigma. Stigma. This means there's a negative impression, a negative opinion. So you could say that there's a stigma around being single when you're in your 40s or 50s, when you're an adult. There's a stigma. There's a negative impression. Why are you alone? Why aren't you married? Why aren't you in a relationship? Is something wrong with you? There's a stigma with being alone, right? So remember, solitude is an alternative for being alone. So if they're trying to destigmatize it, they're trying to take away, remove that negative opinion. So when you meet a woman who's 40 and she isn't married, your first reaction is not, why aren't you married? Why are you alone? There's something wrong with you. Your first impression is neutral or positive about the fact that she's alone. So the information aims not only to remove the negative impression around being alone, around solitude, but also to make a case for its benefits and pleasures. If you make a case for something, you argue in a way that supports it. So you argue for it, you advocate for it, you promote it, you support it. That's make a case for something. Here's an example using make a case for. My students made a case because make is your verb. So here is conjugated in the past simple. My students made a case for why I should record more Learn English with the News lessons. So if I wanted to change the word, I could say my students argued for why I should record more Learn English with the News lessons. Now, there's two meanings of the word argue. When a husband and a wife argue, friends argue, it's negative, it's like a fight, but not as severe as fighting. It sounds less severe, but it's negative. That's not here. When you argue for something, you offer reasons or evidence to support an idea or opinion. So it's very much used in debates, in when you're presenting an idea formally, you would use that. And you can use make a case for something. Let's keep reading. Such a powerful stream of publications. Remember the publications, they were the movies, TV shows, books, and social media videos like TikToks. Such a powerful stream of publications. Stream just suggests there's many of them coming. One after the other, they just keep coming. Such a powerful stream of publications might come as a surprise. At first, to everyone who has lived through the pandemic and inevitably heard of or got a bitter taste of the so-called loneliness epidemic. So what happened during the pandemic? Everyone was lonely. But now this stream of publications, this new wave of information is supporting being alone, being in solitude. So that's why it might come as a surprise. To come as a surprise is just, it might surprise you. So it might be unexpected or not what you would think. It might come as a surprise. So if your friend told you, I'm moving to Tokyo to spend a year in solitude, you might say, wow, that came as a surprise. The information was unexpected. So that came as a surprise. That surprised me. So you could use that when someone shares information with you. Now, at first, so of course, after you contemplate it, you think about it more deeply. Now here, got a bitter taste of. So you've heard of the loneliness epidemic. Now, if you got a bitter taste of it, it means that you personally experienced it and it wasn't a positive thing. So that's a bitter taste of, because you can experience something and not have a negative view of it. But bitter taste of means that you experienced it in a negative way. So you were lonely during the epidemic, or during the pandemic, excuse me. Let's keep reading. Now, though, the discourse is course correcting itself. Okay, the discourse represents the thoughts, the feelings, what people are saying, what people are writing books on, creating content on. So people's thoughts, feelings, and what they're sharing publicly. That's the discourse. Is course correcting itself. So if you course correct, it means you change your direction because you're going in the wrong way. So when you may have heard, or maybe not, maybe this may come as a surprise to you, but as a plane is flying, basically the entire time that plane is in the air, it's course correcting. Because its destination is here, but as it's flying, the wind takes it this way. So the plane has to course correct and go this way. But then because of turbulence, the plane has to go this way. So later on, once the turbulence is done, the plane course corrects and goes the right way. So changes direction purposely because you're going in the wrong direction. So I guess they're saying here, the discourse, this is to destigmatize solitude. So the negative feelings that people have or the negative judgments of someone being alone, that needs to course correct. That needs to change direction because it's going in the wrong direction. The distinction between loneliness and solitude, according to one researcher, is an important one. And many writers echo this sentiment. So the sentiment is what was just said. And what was just said is the distinction between loneliness and solitude is an important one. So there's an important distinction. There's an important difference between loneliness and solitude. We can summarize that as being lonely, being alone. This is a great pop quiz for you. Do you know the difference between being lonely and being alone? Because the words sound very familiar or similar, but the feeling, the sentiment is very different. Now, and many writers echo this sentiment, which means they agree with it. They say the same thing. If you echo what someone says, you say the same thing. So they support it. So did you answer my pop quiz about the difference between alone and lonely? So this is according to the dictionary. These are not my words. I copied and pasted this from the dictionary, the Cambridge Dictionary. Alone, without other people. Lonely, unhappy because you are not with other people. That's the difference. Alone is neutral. It simply means without other people. There's no feeling towards it. Lonely is negative. If you say, I'm alone, it's neutral. You have no idea if I'm happy or unhappy. If I say I'm lonely, you know I'm not happy. So lonely is always negative. It's unhappy. So that's the distinction between loneliness, which is being unhappy because you are not with other people, and solitude, which is the state of being without other people, neutral. Let's keep reading. While loneliness is a serious and harmful problem for some people, it is a subjective state very different from solitude. Subjective state simply means that two people can be in the same situation alone on a Friday night, and one person is lonely. The other person is alone. So negative emotion, neutral emotion. That someone has, let's try this again. It is a subjective state, very different from solitude, that someone has actively chosen for positive reasons, says journalist Heather Hansen. So this journalist is saying that the state of solitude is a choice, and I choose it for positive reasons. If being and doing things alone is increasingly widespread, so widespread means more and more people are doing it. Now, increasingly also means the trend of more people doing it is just increasing over time, because something can be widespread, but for a very short period of time, or in terms of being widespread, it goes from 0 to 50 in terms of how many people are doing it, just as an example, and it stays there. But increasingly, it goes from 0 to 20 to 50 to 80 to 120 to 200. So more and more people, and then the more and more people is increasing. If being and doing things alone is increasingly widespread and stigma-free, so stigma-free, this means it's free of stigma. So it's free of the negative opinion and judgment that people have. So you could also say and destigmatized, and destigmatized, and destigmatized. Then how to make the most of it. If you make the most of something, it means you get the most benefit from the situation. Often we use this to try to turn a negative situation into a positive situation. For example, if your plane is delayed for 2 hours, you might say to your friend or say to yourself, let's make the most of it. Let's take this 2 hours that we're just sitting here waiting for our plane, but let's benefit from it. How can we make the most of it? We can play a game. We can get to know each other better. We can, I don't know, walk back and forth for 2 hours and get some exercise. If you're alone, maybe you can finally get caught up on your emails that you haven't read. So you have to benefit to the maximum degree, maximum possibility. Make the most of it. So it's a really great expression you can add to your vocabulary. Here's my example again. My flight was delayed for 2 hours, but I made the most of it. So it is the situation. I made the most of my flight being delayed for 2 hours. So it represents the situation. And generally, when we use this expression, the situation has already been said. It's obvious. So you would use it to represent the situation. And make is your verb. So here it's conjugated in the past simple. My flight was delayed for 2 hours, but I made the most of it. I finally finished my expense report. So this is how I benefited from this situation. Instead of just sitting there like, 2 hours and just staring at the clock, I did something productive. I made the most of it. Let's keep reading. A couple of key factors. How many is a couple? 2. So instead of saying a couple of key factors, you could simply say 2 key factors. Everyone agrees on are, because it's plural factors. Key represents important or very important. Are finding a healthy balance between solo time and being with others. So solo time is time alone, or time in solitude. So solo is an adjective, but notice in this case it comes before time. But with alone, it's between time alone. So the word order is reversed between solo time and being with others. So you need a balance. You can't have too much of one and not enough of the other. There needs to be some sort of balance. And having, because remember, there were 2 key factors. So we just read 1, a healthy balance, and now the second, number 2, having the ability to choose solitude rather than being forced to experience it. So this is the line between alone and lonely. If you're forced to be alone, well, then maybe that is actually lonely. And that's more of a negative, unhappy state. So you have to choose solitude. And that's the end of the article. What I'll do now is I'll read the article from start to finish, and you can focus on my pronunciation. Humans need solitude. How being alone can make you happier. In Wim Wenders's recent film Perfect Days, the main character, a Tokyo toilet cleaner, spends many of his hours in solitude, watering plants, contemplating, listening to music, and reading. While more characters are introduced as the film develops, for many viewers, its earlier moments really struck a chord. No wonder. Thoughtful and positive outlooks on solitude have been taking up more and more space on our screens, bookshelves, and smartphones, from podcasts to viral TikToks. Seemingly, there's never been a better time to be alone. Packed with keen observations and helpful tips, this new wave of information aims not only to destigmatize solitude, but also to make a case for its benefits and pleasures. Such a powerful stream of publications might come as a surprise at first to everyone who has lived through the pandemic and inevitably heard of or got a bitter taste of the so-called loneliness epidemic. Now, though, the discourse is course-correcting itself. The distinction between loneliness and solitude, according to one researcher, is an important one, and many writers echo this sentiment. While loneliness is a serious and harmful problem for some people, it is a subjective state very different from solitude that someone has actively chosen for positive reasons, says journalist Heather Hansen. If being and doing things alone is increasingly widespread and stigma-free, then how to make the most of it? A couple of key factors everyone agrees on are finding a healthy balance between solo time and being with others, and having the ability to choose solitude rather than being forced to experience it.
Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put let's go, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.